Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and today we are going to be talking about the controls setup. I have determined that I still do not like the Microsoft Flight Simulator controls GUI. I don't like the interface. I think it's clunky as hell. I think it's really poorly organized in my personal opinion. Everybody's welcome to their own. And so today I'm going to show you guys why I am once again sticking with Spad.Next. There's actually quite a few benefits outside of just mapping your controls to using Spad and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. And yes, it is actually a lot easier to do. So stick around guys, because we're going to give you all of the ins and outs in regard to Spad.Next with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below.
Overkill simulations, watch us as we fly. Overkill simulations, a thrill will never die.
Okay, so yeah, let's first talk about a few things here. Is it there? I'm trying to remember where the damn door is on this thing. This is the, by the way, this is the new Cessna 404 that came default. It's a Coronado aircraft. Oh, that's what I opened. My bad. There we go. So far, digging it, but trying to figure out how to open the damn door. So anyways, let's start talking about a few things. So right out of the gate, like I said in the starting of this video, the interface is just really clunky. Again, they literally, in my opinion, didn't really change much. If anything, again, I'm going to say this a bunch of times, in my opinion, they made it worse. It's poorly organized. It's still very clunky. It doesn't recognize all the controls that we have. Yesterday, for example, guys, one of the products that I'm going to be showcasing here on the channel soon is the Winwing Orion 2 with the F15E throttle. Okay, and so yesterday I was initially just going to start with that and, to sort of see how it all worked out, blah, blah, and the flight simulator would only recognize one axis. There it goes. One axis of the throttle, and just was binding buttons weird, and it's clunky. It picks up every little movement. Like last night while I was trying to bind rudder pedals inside the sim, rudder pedals were the only thing I was touching. I only had my one toe on the right rudder, and nothing else was moving. And every time I tried to bind something, it would think it was something else and tell me wrong device. So it's not, and again, I get, just like I said yesterday, this is the starting days, right? These are the starting days, and I understand that. But Spad just works better, guys. Now I said yesterday in my last video, or this morning in my video, Spad.Next, I'm going to call them out. Their customer support, honestly sucks. And the reason why I say that is actually not from personal experience, but from reading the way that they've talked to other people in their Discord. They can be very rude. There's one or two of the developers, I think, that are extremely arrogant. And they just talk to people like they're stupid. And so I will say that part I don't like. And if there was another product that was laid out the way Spad was, that had the interface that Spad does, that was as easy and friendly to use as Spad is, I would go somewhere else just for that reason. They have never been like that with me, but I've absolutely seen them be like that with people who clearly don't have the background and the knowledge that, for example, I do, or even someone who's even better than me at this does. And they just, sometimes they're mean. So, but I am going to show you guys, we're going to talk about a bunch of benefits as to why we're doing this. Okay, so first off, let's talk about how Spad integrates with Microsoft Flight Simulator. It has an LVAR connection bridge, and even without the bridge allows you to use LVARs. And what are LVARs? LVARs are, how do I best describe it? I'm going to try to keep this as high level as I can. To put it simply, they are controls that are available to be bound that are not available in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So by going to Microsoft Flight Simulator, the settings, controls, they won't be listed there. But if you go into SPAD, you have a whole bunch of other control options and binding options and configurations options that you can use using those LVARs, okay? But they can only be accessed through third-party software, as far as I'm aware anyway. So that's the first part. Second benefit to using Spad.Next, I am able to use my configuration. Now, I have to redo all of my configurations anyway, because since I put the cockpit back in the office after doing my modifications, I've got a whole bunch of new buttons, controls, etc. But if I hadn't, I did verify last night that I can take my old Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 profiles, and literally the only thing that I had to do was start Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Now, caveat. There were some things that did not work that I had to go find the new command for. Okay, I think taxi lights, for example, was one of them where it wasn't working by default, and I had to find the MSFS version for 24. But that was it. And then as far as setting your controls for new aircraft, you have the ability to, and I know it exists in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2, but it's a far, far simpler interface, and you guys are going to see all of that today. You have the ability to simply grab a profile and create a new one from that, and then just edit it based on the aircraft. And again, I'm going to show you guys all of this today. So let's go ahead and just sort of get started with it. All right, guys. So here is SPAD. SPAD is very, very simple to use. Now, I'm going to delete a bunch of these. These are from my old MSFS 2020. Again, like I said, I have to redo everything anyway because I've completely changed the cockpit. But let's go ahead and get started on some of this, at least with the basic controls, so I can show you guys how I do this. Now, you always have to have at least a active profile. So I'm going to create an empty profile, and I'm going to call it basic, right? And basic is going to be things like anything that all of your aircraft will have. That just keep it simple. Okay, and even then, there may be a few changes based on that. Okay, so we're going to go into basic. Now, nothing is working. So from my cockpit, let's just start with the basics. We're going to start with rudder pedals, brakes, your control axis, etc. Okay. So let's see here. I didn't want to go in there. There we go. So here are all of my controls. So let's start with what we got. First thing that we want to do is we're going to start with the right VPC stick, and we're going to get our ailerons and elevators set. So I'm going to go add event, axis value. I'm not going to really talk through everything, guys. I've done a bunch of videos on SPAD. Just look at my channel, do a search, click on my channel, go to videos, do a search for SPAD, and you will find a ton. I've done a ton of tutorials. So I'm really just going to be demonstrating as I go through, so just follow along. I'll try not to speed click the mouse, just so you guys can watch, though. Which one? X-axis, so this is the ailerons. Okay, so going full right, set, center, set, full left, come over. There it is, set. All right, and boom, that's done. And then do the same thing, and we're just gonna zip through. And it's a much, much simpler way to do this. And so again, center, full up, center, full down. Hey, get over there. Center, I'm pushing on it with my left hand so I click the mouse. So it's weird. Crossing over my chest. Yep, that happens sometimes. That's fine. We'll just hit yes. And we'll hit OK. Jot that in, whatever. There we go. And hit save. Okay. And I'm not going to go through all the LVARs and stuff today. That was just an example of some of the features. If we end up having to use one, cool, but I'm not going to go out of my way to demonstrate that today, just so we're on the same page. Okay, so we have our elevators, and we should have our axis. So there's our elevators, and there's our ailerons. Okay, that's done. Now let's go over to the throttle set. For throttles, let's see what we got. What do we have in this aircraft? We have 2 twins, and we have all 3 sets. Okay, so that's fine. So that will be an example of something that actually will change, right? But we are definitely going to want the throttles. So let's go back into SPAD. So I'm definitely going to want engine 1, engine 2. That's going to be these guys, and I believe RX is the left one. Yes, it is. So, for example, add event. And some of these, again, will have to change based on the aircraft you're in. And that's the other thing, is that SPAD automatically switches based on your aircraft. It knows what plane you're in. You can even reconfigure it based on the livery. So, for example, if you're doing one that has skydiving versus firebombing or whatever it may be, right? I'm going to do throttle without reverser for this. The reverser aircraft I always configure separately just to keep things simple and on point. So full thrust, we're going to hit set. Idle, that's where my detent is for my cutoff. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. That's fine. We're going to hit set. Okay. Oops, that is not what I wanted to hit. Damn it. Hold on. Let me cancel that. I hit the wrong button. Standard access. Just dawned on me I was doing that. I apologize. So there's that, and then I want to hit this one. I'm sorry. That's full thrust. And that's idle thrust, and hit OK. I guess it did the same thing. But anyway, hit OK. All right, and then rinse and repeat for the right engine. Throttle without reverser, engine 2, full thrust, idle, done. Okay, now let's find our rudder pedals. And centered. Full right. Ow. I just kicked the damn thing with my toes. Full left. Set. And let's find wheel brakes. So we're going to come down here. Toe brakes. That's going to be the right one. Right toe brake. No brake. Max brake. Obviously rinse and repeat for the left one. And sometimes you may have to invert some of these. It depends. Left toe brake. Max. Set. And let's check them. So I need to invert that. The toe brakes, however, look like they're fine. But let's... To be honest, I've never used this aircraft before. Yep, that's parking brake good. Okay, yeah, toe brakes are good. All right, but we need to invert the rudder pedals. So let's go back to the Z-axis. And we'll just highlight it, edit, and invert axis. Very, very simple to use. It's very quick. You know, there's none of this back and forth through the menu screen. Just click and go, man. And the actions will take place also before you save it. So you can test it before you actually save the profile. And if not, then you just don't save the profile. All right, so now let's look at a few others. So we got our primer. Well, we need flaps, actually. So actually, I haven't thought about where I want to put flaps, to be completely honest with you. Well, for right now, I'll do my general. I normally put flaps in 2 different places, depending on the aircraft. So we'll go back to the stick for a second. And there's 2 buttons that I like to use. So there's flaps up, flaps down, 10 and 16. Let's go 10. Send simulation event. This one's going to be a little bit different. And here we go. So we're going to do flaps decrease for flaps up. And no, wait, we want to go. And that's the other thing is you can have a bunch of commands be executed with a single button as well. You can set one button to basically start the entire plane if you wanted. I don't know why you'd want to, but... Okay. And then now coming in here, there's our flap switch on the right. You can see it going down. Perfect. All right, so now let's work on the landing gear. Obviously, gear handle is going to be a big one. Now, I always forget which one of these VPC panels. I can't wait to do the review on these. These came out really cool. Is it 1? Nope. Is it 2? Yes. All right, there is our landing gear. So this one has 3 stages, and I'm trying to decide if I just want 1 and 2 for the base profile. I think we're just gonna do 1 and 2. So this one's gonna be gear down. I think it's gear lever, gear handle. Oh no, there we go, gear down. I don't know why I get the chime every time now. I didn't used to do that. Then we're going to do gear up, obviously. And that's the other cool part, is it remembers the last thing you looked at. So for things like this, where you have an up and down, it makes it real easy to get to the next step. You don't have to go digging. You can see the gear handle move there. Dangerous, but you saw it move. Don't do that in real life. I'm not sure how that would work, especially with power on. We're probably safe since there's no power on, but you know. All right, so we have our gear, we have our flaps, we have our throttles, and we can check the throttles, by the way, and there they go. Okay, so we have our throttles, we have our rudders, we have our toe brakes. Now let's get into the next thing that all aircraft have, right? Let's get into battery. Let's get into the avionics switch. Let's get into our lights. Okay, let's start working about that. All right, so coming back here, we're going to start with our masters. Okay, so avionics. And battery. So where are we? That's my battery switch right there. All right, so I want that. Now, I'm using one switch for both batteries. That's the kicker here. Now, I don't have to. I have got a million different switches I could use, but this is the way I kind of want to do this. Okay, well, maybe I don't. Let's do independent. I just had a neat idea. Anyway, you guys can tell I haven't set this up, like I said. So we're going to come in here and just do the same thing. So I'm just going to get going. You guys sort of see how I do. This is another thing, B events. They're slightly different. Let's actually search master battery. And any time that there's a space, you're probably going to see an underscore like that. Master battery on, master battery off. Now I'm going to guess that this one may only have one. And it was 23. All right, and let's see. It does only have one battery. Okay, and then close the hatch there. Boom. And then the other one's going to be the alternators is what's going to be next to it. So it does have 2 alternators. Obviously one for each engine. I know what I'm going to do with those 2. Well, I thought I did. Now I'm questioning myself. Do I want to do that? Yep, I know where they're going. Yep, I'm going to bring them over here. Got a couple of dials here I can use too. Probably use those brightness controls. So 14 and 16. Actually, this is what I do, guys. I'm sorry. Let's go back over here. I actually think I'm going to use these 2. Let's use these 2 for the alternators. There we go. So that's going to be alternators on. So button pressed, add action, send simulation event. alternator 1. All right, so I guess we're going to do a B event on this particular aircraft. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So we're going to do, actually, so in this, well, let's see here. We're going to set it to condition 1. Condition 1 should be on. So we're going to test that here in just a second. So we come down here, look at our configuration. Yep, and it did. Now, when I put the switch back, it doesn't go back because we haven't bound anything. So let's check that next. That's going to be 27. Add event, button pressed, add action. And now we're going to set it to 0 for condition off. There we go. So there's left alternator. Let's repeat for the right. And again, that's something that the left and right alternator, I can guarantee, is in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but a B event could absolutely be something that is not. Okay, it really just depends. All right, so next let's take a look at the next basic thing. So we could do magnetos, but like for example, these magnetos are completely different. So I'm probably going to set my magnetos up for more general aviation. So we'll probably switch aircraft to do that particular set. But now let's work on something like the lights, okay? And it's going to be the same thing that you guys are seeing. I'm going to set all of my lights up in the basic profile, right? So we'll probably do this one pretty damn fast. Is it this one? Yep. So starting here, 11, 12... 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm just verifying that I got my numbers right. I don't want any surprises. All right, so we're starting with 11. So I always start with the nav lights. That's usually the first light that you're going to turn on, right? So let's just look for nav, and I'm going to go underscore. Usually I can find it pretty fast like that. Yep, nav lights on. So boom, done. And then I'm just going to go right to the next line. That's why I did. These are toggle switches. Well, they're momentary switches, but you guys get the gist. They have 2 positions. And the next one I'm going to go with is usually going to be the beacon light. All right, next step's probably going to be preparing to start your engines. So we'll go beacon. And there we go, beacon light's on. So we'll go a lot faster here on this one. But this is the other thing that I want you guys to truly recognize too, is how quickly you can set up your controls. Okay, next one, probably going to be strobe or taxi lights will be the next step. I usually do this in phase of flight, right? Taxi lights on. Taxi lights off. Okay, then coming down to the next row. Next one's probably going to be, let's see here, what would be next? So we've got taxi lights on, we got beacon lights on, nav lights on. We're taxiing onto the runway, get to the runway. What's going to be next? We're going to do landing lights, right? Well, let's do the strobe. Well, yeah, let's do landing lights. So landing. Okay. Parking brake, that's another one we'll need to bind. So landing lights on, there it is. Next one over. And some of these aircraft, you'll have to come in and tweak some of these. Some of them have different features, of course. So it's not a perfect configuration, but it gives you a really good ground to start on. And then finally, the last set will be, what, strobes, right? And actually, we'll also bind recogs as well, because some aircraft have those. And they're more common than you think. So we're going to go strobe on. Although most aircrafts that have a recog don't usually have a strobe light, but at least from what I've seen so far. But we'll bind it all. Oops. And if we want to change it later. And that's the other thing, if you guys aren't looking at this, you also have different variations. Each one of these configurations can do something different. Button pressed short can do one thing. If you hold that same button down for longer than half a second, it can do something completely different. You can have it do one thing when it's pressed and another thing when it's released. Like it's just, and then when it's held, like it goes on and on. The configuration options are endless. I can bind all of these lights that I'm binding right now. I could have bound them all to one switch. Okay, I don't know why you'd want to. That wouldn't be fun, but in my opinion. It's going to be recog. Recognition lights on. And finally, recog lights off. Okay. So there we go. We come in here, start working through our lights. Look at the light panel. This one doesn't look like it has beacon light. There's the anti-collision lights. That's exactly what it's using. As strobe lights. And it doesn't have a recog. But there's our landing lights. Nav lights. Although it looks like we might have missed taxi. Oh, no. Here. There we go. So, yep, there's the nav lights. No beacon light on this aircraft. There's the taxi lights. There's the landing lights. Strobe light is the anti-collision light, so that's our beacon. And no recog on this one. Okay? So, that's a good start. That's a good start for this particular aircraft. Let's go to a different plane and sort of tweak this a little bit more. Now, I want you guys to see what happened here. Because I switched plane, no profile has been added to the new aircraft Beech Baron G58 private charter. It recognized that. So I'm just left it timeout. I didn't want to bind it, but it recognized that we changed aircraft. All right, guys. So now I'm going to show you real quick a neat way that I set up the parking brake here too with Spad.Next. So with Spad.Next, if we go over to my throttle, okay, I have a axis on the right hand side. It's just an axis, and I've set it up for the parking brake. Okay, so this makes it kind of fun. So if we edit this event, there's two of them here. If we look at this, just so you guys know how we did this, we did an add action and we did a custom axis event. Okay, custom axis event will bring you to this screen here. Okay, and then we set a range definition. So from about here ish, coming back to about right here, right? You set it, and then to here, which is the max. You guys can see the number there. You want the event to happen one time. Selected just parking _ brakes and set the value to 1. And then pulling it back, okay, we did the same thing and set it to 0. And honestly, 1 would have worked as well. Anything would have worked because this was a different command. So, but we set the exact same thing for the lower region. So now, when I come in here and I move that axis like there's forward, and then when I want to set it, just like you would do in the real aircraft, you pull on it, right? There it goes. So that's another one that we wanted to set. So now we have our yoke set. We have our throttle set for engines 1 and 2, because I have a 2 throttle. We have our rudder set, and we have our toe brakes. Okay? So that is the... Oh, and we have our flaps. So those are the key points for me that I want for my basic profile. I was going to set the fuel tank switch, and then I got to thinking, well, some aircraft have both, some aircraft don't. That's probably one that you're going to want to set on your own. Same thing with the magnetos. Not all of your aircraft will have magnetos, so if you want to disable them, we can. So now we're going to set one up for this aircraft specific, and I'm going to show you guys how easy it is to now duplicate that. So bringing Spad back up, we're going to go back to our profiles. And so we have our basic profile that I'm going to use as a start for basically all the general aviation aircraft, definitely. And we're going to go new profile from this. Okay, so we're going to hit yes, because I forgot to save it. And now name this one. And I honestly actually forgot what aircraft I'm in. But we are in the fly simware, so we'll start that. And I could always edit the name later, but I honestly forgot the name of this plane. I'm pretty tired today, so forgive me, guys. But we're going to put the fly somewhere, just like that. Okay. Bring it down. And actually, never mind. I can tell you exactly what plane we're in. Oh, no. Even it's just saying the fly somewhere. That's funny. Okay. Oh, aircraft assignments. Here we go. So we are in the C24. Okay, is what we're in. So we'll hit save. And let me just change this real quick. We'll edit the profile. Fly Simware C24. There we go. And just do a save. Boom, there it is. All right, and so now we can go through and start adding a few more things to make it more convenient for this particular aircraft. So let's start with the magnetos, because we've already got our battery. We've got the alternator, so right, if we flip the battery down, bring our battery up, we want our alternator. There's our alternator. All right, let's say we wanted our nav lights on. Let's flip the nav lights on. There they go. All right, but next step, we're going to be looking at, like I said, the fuel tank. So this fuel tank has an off position. Now, what I'm going to be using for this particular one is going to be my wind wing panel. So let's come down to our devices. I'm going to use my wind wing combat ready panel, and it has the jettison buttons on it. And I'm going to be using the top 3 selectors. So we're going to use this one for off, left, and right for this particular aircraft. And I'm always going to leave this top one as, actually, you know what? We're going to do the bottom one here, because I want this middle one to be both for the other aircraft. And when you're doing this, I recommend trying to set most of your aircraft up identical. That way you get that muscle memory, especially when you're flying in VR like I like to do. So we're going to set this one here as our fuel left. So button pressed, add action, send simulation event, just like we did before. And there's our fuel selector. Like I told you, I was going to do it and decided to wait. And left, you usually have, for this particular example, you're going to have 3 values. Remember, we need to set a value. Each value indicates a position. So 0 is usually going to be off. 1 is going to be left. Usually 2 will be right. However, I think with this aircraft, it's actually a little different. I think 2 is off. So, for example, let's set it to, I believe it's 2 for the left side. And hit OK. And we don't even need to save it. Let's monitor the fuel valve here. And when I push that button... Oh, did I not save that correctly? Hang on a second. Oh, no. 2 is off. I'm sorry. I just got done telling you guys that too, didn't I? So let's go back here and edit it. So now let's set it actually to 1. And see what 1 is. So 1 is the right tank. So let's go back in and we'll just edit it again and set it to 0. It means 0 is the left. So for each position that a knob had, like for example here on the magneto to make more sense, it could be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is what your positions are going to be. All right. And so there we go. And now when we push again, there's the left selector. So now let's go back and set the right selector, since we now know what it is. Remember, Spad's going to automatically remember what we last selected. And we're going to change this to 1. Hit OK. And now we should be able to swap very easily between the 2 tanks. And then finally, our one that I wanted to set for off. Button pressed, add action, send simulation event. And in this particular aircraft, 2 is the off position. Hit save. And fuel's off. Okay? And so this is where this gets really cool, working with your independent aircraft. And now we'll obviously need to set our mixture and propeller. So let's do that real quick. And that's going to be on one of these panels. There it is, though. That one right there. Cool. All right, so this is going to be our prop. That one's easy. Standard axis event. Where are you? Propeller pitch. Engine 1. Now for these two, because I want to use, I have 2 other handles on here, but I want to use them for cowl flaps. Because I always forget to use the damn cowl flaps. So I'm trying to get in a better habit of doing that. But, I mean, obviously you can set them for whatever you'd like. So we're going to do engines 1 and 2 for these. Max pitch. We're going to do set, low pitch, set, OK. And let's verify functionality. There it is. Perfect. And we'll just rinse and repeat for the mixture. Engines 1, engine 2. Hey, get on there. Set. Minimum. Set. Okay. Save. And there we go. And now we have those two independent. Our throttle's independent. Okay. And that is the gist of it, guys. And this is why I feel that Spad.Next is still a far, far better tool to use, especially with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. And here's the thing to remember. If the command exists in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, it exists in Spad. Hands down. Doesn't matter what it is. So let's do one more thing for you guys here. Let's say we wanted to change the sim rate. Let's go back to the WinWing panel, just to use something as an example. So there we go. 41. Let's make that reduce the sim rate. And I'm just going to type rate. There it is. Sim rate decrease. Okay. And see if that actually populates. I can't remember if it gives us a notification or not. It doesn't. But let's add the other way. $43. Sim rate increase. And you can see our guy over here moving like crazy. Okay, now let's do one for the sim rate reset, right? So let's just use one. Actually, that doesn't seem to be resetting the sim rate. Oh, that's sim reset. Oops. Sorry. There we go. So, you guys got the gist. Again, I hope you guys found this video useful. As always, guys, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.